we are learning two of Donald Trump's lawyers have reached out to the Justice Department to get security clearance. This is a requirement for them to get access to the evidence in his federal indictment and was also the subject of the first order by the judge overseeing the case, Aileen Cannon. She told Trump's legal team they had to request the clearance by today and report back to her by next Tuesday. CNN's Jessica Snyder is with us now on this. Talk to us about the pace here and what this means.
Yeah, John, both DOJ and the judge here, Aileen Cannon, they want this process to move along as quickly as possible. So really, Judge Cannon's first order of business was instructing all the attorneys to get in touch with DOJ to begin this security clearance process. Now, our Caitlin Collins is reporting that Trump's lawyers, Todd Blanche and Chris Kise, they have already been in touch with DOJ because, of course, this case is comprised of highly sensitive, classified materials. And because of that, these attorneys will need to get security clearance in order to work with all of that material. In another turn here, John, this order is also significant because it shows that Judge Cannon, who has been criticized for siding with Trump in a previous related case and whose ability to effectively manage this case has been questioned, it does show that she is already getting into motion to manage her docket within days of Trump's arraignment. You know, Judge Cannon is relatively new to the bench. She was nominated by Donald Trump in 2019, but she will be the one running this massive and complicated case, and she is taking charge right off the bat by trying to get the security clearance process in motion. In addition here, Judge Cannon's order, it definitely does put this additional pressure on the former president to get his legal team fully aligned. Trump does have Chris Kise, that's Florida's former Solicitor General. He's on his team. Also Todd Blanche, they were in court with him during the arraignment this week. But we know that Trump is still looking for at least one other attorney, and his team has been in touch with Florida law firms. But as you're aware, John, you know, attorneys have been hesitant to work with the former president. He really does have this history of not necessarily listening to legal advice and, of course, not always paying his bills. So they have to report to the judge by Tuesday as to whether they've coordinated with the DOJ, which at this point, John, we know that at least two of his lawyers have. We'll see if they can get others on board in the coming days. John?
Anything else on timing that Judge Cannon betrayed in this order? And what can DOJ do? What can prosecutors do at this point if they want to keep things going in a fast manner?
Well, we know that DOJ wants to get the security clearance process moving as well. It's not just the judge in this case. So presumably all parties are going to work as quickly as they can to get in touch with DOJ to get the security clearance process moving along here. Judge Cannon has set the deadline for today for the lawyers to get in touch with DOJ, for Tuesday to report to her about the progress. So presumably, John, she's going to be monitoring things, maybe if not at a daily level, maybe weekly, or, you know, getting status reports. She wants to keep this moving as well because it is such a high-profile case with such massive implications, and it's also just a massive case for her to deal with. John?
Jessica Snyder, thank you so much for this reporting. With us now is National Security Attorney Mark Zaid. Mark, that actually doesn't do you service. This is your space. You know as much about these types of cases, broadly speaking, pretty much as any attorney in America. So how quickly can these attorneys get the clearances they need in this case? And what does this first order from Judge Cannon tell you about her?
So I think the order made a lot of sense. Good for her for taking charge and moving forward. I would already have imagined or expected that Trump's, at least minuscule legal team at the moment, was already in contact with the Justice Department to start coordinating this, but it was a good first appearance by the judge to take this step. The council are going to have to complete what we call an SF-86, just standard form 86. That's the national security questionnaire for all of us to obtain security clearances. And it is a very lengthy form, 130 or so pages, depending on which version you're looking at. It will depend on what's in these lawyers' background. And it doesn't have to be something that's negative, like an arrest. It could be that one of them is married to a foreign national, or there are relatives overseas, or as I understand it, one of them, at least one, used to represent or still does some foreign government officials. All of those are issues that the U.S. government will take into account when adjudicating their trustworthiness, or more precisely, the risk to national security if they were given access to classified information. How long it will take? Up to the executive branch. I once had a federal judge order the government to clear me in 10 days. And I just laughed because that generally just can't happen.
Mark, we learned the former president has scheduled a rally for a couple weeks from now in South Carolina. What are the potential problems that could arise from these public political events? How could it impact the legal case?
Well, there is a huge conflict between the legal case and the public relations political case. And I don't think that conflict's going away. The lawyers would be telling Donald Trump what has been discussed so many times. Please stop talking. Every time he talks, he digs a further hole for himself from a legal standpoint. Problem is, politically, every time he speaks, it looks like it's favorable. His poll numbers go up, fundraising increases, it energizes the base. This case, as has been discussed so often, is going to be dragged out as long as possible. It is in Trump's best interest to take it past the election in 2024, because if he wins, this case goes away. Not the state cases if they still exist, but this case does. So he might as well push it out as far as possible. So I think you're going to hear him say a lot of things at the rallies, and most of us as lawyers and you as journalists are all going to go like, ugh, you got to be kidding me. But this is what we have right now.
Mark, as I said, no two cases are exactly alike, but you have worked in this space, broadly speaking, more than most attorneys in this country. So most people who have done similar things to what Donald Trump is accused of doing, what charges have they faced? In other words, is he being treated differently? And ultimately, what's the possible sentence for the types of crimes that you've seen?
Sure, he has been treated differently, but it's been favorably to him. If this had been my client, my normal mid-level senior manager inside a federal agency, what we say a GS 14 or 15, maybe even a senior executive service representative, they would have been indicted a long time ago. And they would not have been asked nicely to return the classified information the way Donald Trump was over a period of many, many, many months. So things would have been different for sure. These cases are rare when it really comes down to it, but they do happen. There are other mishandling cases or leak cases, but even with mishandling, we've got 37 counts against him. If you looked at everything, you're talking over 300 years. That's not realistic, obviously. Most of these cases, which rarely go to trial because the person pleads out, because there's really nothing to say at the trial itself as to whether they did it or not factually. But they have recently been like 3 to 9 years for prison time as a result. So President Trump is facing real jail time. I'm sure any one day for him is going to be unacceptable, but that's what he's facing.
Mark Zaid, great to have you on this morning. You can handle the truth, despite what the book behind you says this morning. Great to have you on.